It all started on a rainy Thursday afternoon, the kind of day that made everything feel heavier. I was at the office, buried under a mountain of paperwork, trying to focus on the tasks at hand while the sound of raindrops against the window created a melancholic melody. My wife, Emily, was at home, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off between us. The spark that once ignited our relationship seemed to flicker dimly, and I longed to reignite the passion we once shared. Emily and I had been married for 5 years, and while our lives had settled into a comfortable routine, I couldn't help but feel a sense of distance growing between us. I worked long hours, often bringing work home, trying to provide for us and build a future. I loved Emily deeply, but the demands of my job had begun to take a toll on our connection. I often wondered if I was spending too much time in the office and not enough at home. That evening, we had an office party to attend, an event I hoped would bring us closer together. I was excited to introduce Emily to my coworkers, especially Mr. Thompson, my boss. He was a charismatic man with a magnetic personality, and I was proud to have him as a mentor. I hoped the night would be an opportunity for Emily and me to reconnect, to step away from our routines and enjoy the company of friends. As we arrived at the venue, I could see the tension in Emily's posture. She seemed out of place among my colleagues, her smile a little forced as she engaged in small talk. I tried to reassure her, but I sensed that she was struggling to feel comfortable. It wasn't until she met Mr. Thompson that I noticed a change. Their conversation flowed effortlessly, and I felt a pang of jealousy as I watched them laugh together. I brushed it off, telling myself it was just a friendly exchange. As the night went on, I found myself absorbed in conversations with my coworkers, but my mind kept drifting back to Emily. She looked radiant under the dim lights, but there was a certain distance in her eyes that worried me. I wanted to reach out and bridge that gap, to pull her back into my world, but the more I tried, the more it felt like I was pushing her away. A few weeks later, I had to attend a conference out of town. I knew Emily would be alone, and I felt a mix of guilt and concern about leaving her behind. We had planned to spend the weekend together, but work had to come first. Before I left, I tried to remind her how much she meant to me, hoping it would ease my conscience. While I was away, I received a text from Emily, telling me she was having lunch with Mr. Thompson. My heart sank. It was just lunch, I told myself, but the thought of her spending time with him made me uneasy. I trusted Emily, but I couldn't help but feel a twinge of possessiveness. I knew how charming Mr. Thompson could be, and I worried that their friendship might grow into something more. When I returned home, I sensed a shift in the atmosphere. Emily was more reserved, and I could tell she was hiding something. I tried to engage her in conversation, but it felt like I was talking to a wall. The distance between us was palpable, and I was desperate to understand what was happening. I wanted to confront her, to ask if something was wrong, but I feared pushing her further away. Days turned into weeks, and I noticed the increased frequency of Emily's outings. She would often say she was meeting friends, but my gut told me otherwise. I began to feel like I was losing her, and the thought gnawed at me. I wanted to be the husband she needed, to support her and make her feel cherished, but I felt powerless to reach her. One evening, I returned home from work to find Emily sitting on the couch, staring off into space. I took a deep breath, determined to break the silence. "Hey, how was your day?" I asked, trying to sound casual. She looked up at me, her expression unreadable. "It was fine," she replied, but I could see the flicker of something behind her eyes. I pressed on, hoping to draw her out. "We should plan a weekend getaway. Just the two of us. What do you think?" She hesitated, and my heart sank. "That sounds nice, but I think I'm really busy with things right now," she said, avoiding my gaze. It felt like a wall had been built between us, and I was on the outside, desperately trying to find a way in. As days passed, I became increasingly worried. I tried to dismiss my suspicions, but they continued to plague me. I was tormented by the idea that Emily might be keeping secrets from me. I wanted to trust her, but the thought of her with Mr. Thompson lingered in the back of my mind, casting a shadow over our marriage. One night, I decided to confront her directly. I couldn't take the silence anymore. Emily, is there something going on that I don't know about? You seem distant, and I'm worried about you, I said, my voice trembling slightly. She looked at me, her expression a mix of surprise and something else I couldn't quite place. Jack, it's just work. I promise, she replied, but her eyes betrayed her. I wanted to believe her, to trust that everything was fine, but the doubt gnawed at me. I tried to distract myself with work, but the unease grew. I found myself constantly thinking about what could be happening when I wasn't around. The image of Emily laughing with Mr. Thompson haunted me. I had always admired his charm and confidence, but now it felt like a threat, a dark cloud looming over the happiness I had fought so hard to build. As the weeks turned into months, I began to feel like a stranger in my own home. The warmth we once shared had been replaced by a cold, uncomfortable silence. I tried to reach out to her, but every attempt seemed to push her further away. I felt like I was losing my grasp on the woman I loved, and the fear of losing her completely was suffocating. In my heart, I knew that something was wrong. I could sense the secrets she harbored, the weight of undisclosed truths pressing down on us. I wanted to fight for our marriage, to reclaim the love we once had, but I was left feeling powerless. The silence stretched between us like an unbridgeable chasm, and I yearned for the day when I could break through and bring back the connection we both desperately needed. The days turned into a blur of routine, each one feeling heavier than the last. I was caught in a cycle of work and home, constantly searching for signs of the woman I once knew. Emily seemed more distant with each passing day, and the tension in our home was palpable. I felt as if I was walking on eggshells, afraid to bring up anything that might provoke her. One evening, after another long day at the office, I returned home to find Emily sitting at the dining table, her laptop open in front of her, papers strewn about. The soft glow from the lamp illuminated her features, but her expression was clouded, lost in thought. I took a deep breath, determined to breach the silence. "Hey, how was your day?" I asked, hoping for even a glimpse of the vibrant woman I had married. She looked up, her eyes briefly meeting mine before darting back to her screen. "It was okay. Just busy with some projects," she replied, her voice lacking the enthusiasm I once cherished. "Do you want to talk about it?" I offered. "I'm here, you know. We can work through anything together." She paused, the tension in her shoulders easing slightly. "Thanks, Jack. I appreciate it. It's just, work has been overwhelming lately." I could sense the hesitation in her voice, the unspoken words hanging in the air between us. "I know how hard you work, but I miss you." "I miss us," I said, my heart racing. At that moment, I thought I saw a flicker of emotion cross her face, but it disappeared just as quickly. "I miss us too," she admitted quietly, but her eyes seemed to drift somewhere far away. It felt like I was grasping at smoke. No matter how hard I tried to hold on, it slipped right through my fingers. In the following days, I made a conscious effort to reconnect with Emily. I planned a weekend getaway, hoping that a change of scenery might reignite the spark we had lost. I excitedly shared my plans, but she responded with a non-committal nod. "That sounds nice, but I might have to check my schedule," she said. My heart sank. I felt like I was trying to pull her back into a world she had already started to disconnect from. I couldn't shake the feeling that there was something else going on, something she wasn't telling me. The gnawing suspicion in my gut grew stronger, and I found myself questioning every moment we spent together. Then, one evening, as I was cleaning up after dinner, I noticed Emily's phone buzzing on the table. My heart raced as I glanced at the screen. An unfamiliar number flashed before my eyes. I hesitated, telling myself it wasn't right to invade her privacy, but the temptation was overwhelming. I picked it up, my hands trembling slightly. As I opened her messages, my stomach dropped. There were exchanges that sent a chill down my spine, flirty texts, inside jokes, emojis that felt far too intimate for mere colleagues. And among the messages, I found one that made my heart race with anger and betrayal. "I can't stop thinking about you. Can't wait to see you again." I felt the ground shift beneath me. My mind raced as I processed what I had just read. It was as if everything I had sensed over the past few months had crystallized into a painful clarity. I was losing her, and she was hiding something significant from me. In a daze, I put the phone down and walked out of the kitchen. My heart was pounding, and I fought back the urge to confront her right then and there. I needed to gather my thoughts, to figure out what I should do next. I had trusted her, and now that trust felt shattered. The following days were a blur of confusion and heartache. I wanted to confront Emily, to demand answers, but every time I tried, I felt a wave of fear wash over me. What if I was wrong? What if this was all a misunderstanding? But deep down, I knew it wasn't. The betrayal felt too real, too raw. One evening, I couldn't hold it in any longer. I had to know the truth. I waited until we were both settled on the couch, the soft hum of the television filling the silence. My heart raced as I turned to her, trying to keep my voice steady. "Emily, can we talk?" She looked up, her eyes wide, and I could see the tension ripple through her. "Sure, what's on your mind?" I took a deep breath, searching for the right words. "I've noticed that things have been different between us. You seem distant, and I found some messages on your phone." Her expression shifted, and I felt my heart drop. "Jack, I can explain." "Explain what?" "That you're seeing someone else?" The words spilled out before I could stop them. Her face paled, and I could see the realization dawning in her eyes. "It's not what you think," she pleaded, her voice trembling. "Then what is it?" "Because that's exactly what it looks like," I replied, trying to keep my emotions in check. She looked away, her gaze drifting to the floor, and in that moment, I knew. There was no denying it. "Emily, please, just tell me the truth." With a heavy sigh, she finally met my gaze. "It's complicated. Mr. Thompson and I, we developed a friendship, but it got out of hand. I never meant for it to go this far, Jack. I'm so sorry." The weight of her confession hit me like a freight train. I felt numb, my heart shattering into a million pieces. All the suspicions, all the moments I had brushed aside in hope, it all came crashing down. "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "I was scared," she admitted, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I didn't want to hurt you. I thought I could handle it, but I was wrong. I never wanted to betray you." As I listened to her words, I felt a whirlwind of emotions: anger, sadness, confusion. I had devoted myself to this woman, and I had trusted her with my heart. Now, everything felt tainted by her betrayal. "Jack, please," she pleaded, reaching out for my hand. "I love you. I made a mistake. I want to fix this." I pulled away, feeling the weight of her betrayal suffocating me. "You don't get to decide that now. I need time to think." As I stood up and walked away, I felt as if my world was crumbling around me. Trust, once the foundation of our relationship, had been shattered. I needed to find a way to navigate the painful path ahead, but I knew it wouldn't be easy. The love we shared felt like a distant memory, overshadowed by the harsh reality of betrayal. The night at the bar only provided a temporary distraction from the storm brewing inside me. As I returned home, I felt the weight of my choices pressing down on me. I didn't want to confront Emily again, not yet. Instead, I found myself consumed by anger at her, yes, but even more at Mr. Thompson. He had crossed a line that should never have been crossed, and it felt like a betrayal of the brotherhood we had built at work. As I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, I couldn't shake the image of Emily and Mr. Thompson together. The laughter they shared, the intimacy of their messages, it all felt like a personal affront. I'd trusted him implicitly, and he had taken advantage of that trust. My heart raced with fury as I thought about the lack of respect he had shown not only to me but to the vows Emily and I had made. The anger grew until I felt it boiling over. I needed to act, to do something to release this pent-up frustration. It was late, but the idea struck me like a bolt of lightning. I could confront him, but that felt too composed, too dignified. Instead, I decided to unleash my fury in a way that would send a message, one that he wouldn't forget. I grabbed my keys, my heart pounding as I made my way to the door. The adrenaline coursed through my veins as I drove toward Mr. Thompson's house. The streets were quiet, the moon hanging low in the sky, casting an eerie light over everything. I felt a mix of fear and exhilaration, the kind that comes just before you leap into the unknown. When I arrived at his home, I parked a short distance away to avoid being seen. My heart raced as I spotted the yellow Porsche parked in the driveway, gleaming under the moonlight. It was a symbol of his success, a reminder of the power he wielded, and in that moment, it became the target of my rage. I pulled out a can of spray paint I had stashed in my trunk, a bright red that screamed defiance. I hesitated for a moment, heart pounding in my chest, but the image of Emily's tears and the betrayal I felt pushed me forward. I approached the car cautiously, glancing over my shoulder to ensure no one was watching. With the first stroke of paint, I felt a rush of satisfaction. The bright red contrasted sharply with the yellow of the Porsche, and I couldn't help but smile as I wrote words that reflected my anger, traitor, and back off. Each letter felt like a release, a way to vent the frustration that had been building inside me for weeks. But as I continued, I felt a surge of guilt. What was I doing? This wasn't the answer to my problems, and I knew it. But the anger was intoxicating, and I couldn't stop myself. I was caught in a whirlwind of emotions, and with every stroke of the spray paint, I felt a twisted sense of empowerment. Suddenly, I heard a noise, a door creaking open. My heart dropped as I realized I wasn't alone. Panic surged through me as I glanced back at Mr. Thompson, who was standing on his porch, his expression a mix of confusion and alarm. "What the hell are you doing?" he shouted, his voice echoing in the stillness of the night. In that moment, I froze. The reality of my actions hit me like a cold splash of water. I could feel his gaze piercing through me, and the weight of my choices crashed down. I was standing there, paint can in hand, a vandal caught red-handed. I dropped the spray can and took off running, my heart racing as I fled down the street. I could hear Mr. Thompson yelling after me, but I didn't look back. I ran until my lungs burned, the fear of getting caught propelling me forward. I didn't stop until I reached my car, where I collapsed into the driver's seat, panting and overwhelmed. As I sat there, I couldn't shake the feeling of dread. I had crossed a line, one that I could never uncross. The anger that had felt so righteous moments before now felt foolish and reckless. I had let my emotions take control, and I was left with nothing but regret. Driving home, I replayed the scene in my mind. What had I accomplished? I had made a fool of myself and potentially put my job at risk. The very man who had once been my mentor was now my enemy, and I had acted in a way that could only escalate the situation. The reality began to set in. I had to face the consequences of my actions, and I wasn't sure I was ready for what that would mean. When I arrived home, Emily was still awake, waiting for me. The moment I stepped inside, I could see the concern etched on her face. "Jack, where were you?" "I was worried," she said, her voice filled with anxiety. I opened my mouth to respond, but the words caught in my throat. I didn't want to burden her with the events of the night. Instead, I forced a smile, hoping to mask the turmoil inside me. "Just needed some fresh air," I replied, but the lie felt heavy on my conscience. Emily studied me, her eyes searching for the truth. "Are you okay?" she asked, her tone softening. "Yeah, I'm fine," I lied again, knowing it was far from the truth. The weight of my actions pressed down on me like a lead blanket, and I could feel the distance between us growing even more. As I lay in bed that night, I felt the walls closing in. I had acted out of rage, and now I had to face the fallout. The betrayal I had tried to confront had only led to more chaos, and I was left wondering if I would ever find a way to heal the wounds that had been inflicted on our marriage. The road ahead felt uncertain, and the only thing I knew for sure was that I had to confront my feelings, not just for Emily, but for myself. I needed to find a way to reclaim my life from the shadows of anger and betrayal that had taken hold. The following days were a blur of dread and anxiety. I knew the aftermath of my reckless decision was imminent. I had crossed a line, and the consequences of my actions loomed over me like a storm cloud ready to burst. My mind raced as I replayed the scene with Mr. Thompson. Would he report me to HR? Would my career be at stake? But my thoughts quickly shifted to Emily. I dreaded what she might say if she found out the truth. On the third day after the incident, I returned home from work to find Emily sitting on the couch, her expression clouded with anger and hurt. My heart sank as I noticed the tension in the air. I could feel something was off, and I braced myself for the confrontation I had been dreading. "Jack, we need to talk," she said, her voice steady but laced with emotion. I felt a knot tighten in my stomach. "What about?" I asked cautiously, trying to gauge what was to come. "Mr. Thompson called me today," she said, her eyes narrowing. The mention of his name sent a jolt of adrenaline through me. "He told me what you did to his car." I felt my breath hitch as I braced for her reaction. "I didn't mean for you to find out this way," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "I was angry, Emily. I lost control." Her expression hardened. "You vandalized his property, Jack. That's not just losing control, that's being reckless and immature. He deserves it." "He's the one who," I started, but she cut me off. "Who what? Who stole your wife? You think that makes you a tough guy?" Her voice was rising, and I could see the pain etched on her face. "This isn't a movie, Jack. This is real life." I felt the heat rise in my cheeks. "I'm not a tough guy, I'm just trying to understand why you're with him. Is it because of his money? His car?" I spat, the bitterness in my voice cutting through the air. Emily's expression shifted, and I could see the hurt behind her eyes. "You don't get it, do you? It's not about his money or his car. It's about respect. It's about the way he makes me feel, valued and seen. You've been so caught up in your work that you've neglected me." "Neglected you?" I shot back, my frustration boiling over. "I've worked hard to provide for us. I thought that's what you wanted." "I wanted a partner, Jack. Someone who would fight for me, not against me. You think vandalizing his car makes you strong? It makes you weak." Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. I felt raw and exposed, stripped of my defenses. "Emily, please," I pleaded, my voice cracking. "I know I messed up, but I love you. I'm willing to change. We can work through this together." She shook her head, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I don't think I can do this anymore. I've made my decision. I'm moving in with Mr. Thompson." The words hit me like a physical blow. I felt the world around me crumble, the walls of our home closing in as if they were suffocating me. "You can't be serious," I shouted, my heart racing. "You're leaving me for him? After everything? I need someone who respects me, Jack. I can't keep pretending everything is fine when it's not. Mr. Thompson makes me feel alive, and you haven't made me feel that way in a long time. Is that it?" I asked, my voice trembling with disbelief. "You're choosing him because he has money and a fancy car? Is that what it all comes down to?" "It's not just about that," she exclaimed, her frustration boiling over. "You're missing the point. It's about how he treats me, how he listens to me. You've become so consumed by your work that you've forgotten how to be there for me." I felt a wave of despair wash over me. "So, what? You think running away to him will solve everything? You think he's going to make your problems disappear?" "I don't know," she shouted, her voice breaking. "But I can't keep living like this. I want to be happy, Jack, and I don't think I can be happy with you anymore." The room fell silent, the weight of her words hanging in the air like a thick fog. I felt a mix of anger and helplessness, the realization that I was losing her sinking in. I had poured everything into our marriage, and now it felt like it was slipping away, piece by piece. "Emily, please don't do this," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "I love you. I'll do anything to make this work." "I'm sorry, Jack." "I've made up my mind," she replied, her voice softening but resolute. "I need to go." As she turned to leave, I felt as if the ground had been pulled from beneath me. "You're really going to throw everything we built away for him?" I asked, desperation creeping into my voice. "I'm doing this for me," she said, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "I hope one day you can understand that." With that, she walked out of the room, and I was left standing there, feeling utterly defeated. The weight of my mistakes pressed down on me, and I could hardly breathe. I had pushed her away, and now she was choosing someone else, someone I had once respected. As I sank onto the couch, I couldn't shake the feeling of betrayal. I had acted out of anger, but she was walking away, leaving me to grapple with the consequences. I felt hollow, as if the very essence of who I was had been stripped away. My mind raced with questions. How had we come to this? What had I done to push her into someone else's arms? I couldn't comprehend why she would choose him. Did she really love him, or was it just the allure of a life I couldn't provide? The questions twisted in my mind, but there were no answers. All I could do was sit in the darkness, grappling with the aftermath of my choices. The love I once thought was unbreakable lay shattered at my feet, and I was left to pick up the pieces alone. The days turned into a blur of heartache and regret. Emily had moved out, and the silence in our home felt deafening. I wandered through the empty rooms, each space echoing with memories of laughter and love that now felt distant and unattainable. I replayed our last conversation over and over in my mind, searching for the moment where everything had gone wrong. I had let my anger cloud my judgment, and now I was paying the price. Determined not to give up, I devised a plan. I couldn't let Emily walk away without fighting for her. I needed to show her that I could change, that I was willing to put in the effort. I started by reaching out to some of our mutual friends, hoping to gather support and insights. They had seen how our relationship had shifted, but they also knew how deeply I cared for her. One evening, I met with Sarah, one of Emily's closest friends, at a local cafe. As we sipped our drinks, I poured my heart out. "I can't lose her, Sarah. I don't know how to make her see that I can be the partner she needs." She listened intently, her brow furrowed in concern. "Jack, you need to understand where she's coming from. Emily felt neglected. You were so focused on your work that you didn't see how she was struggling." "I know," I admitted, feeling the weight of shame wash over me. "But I thought I was doing the right thing. I wanted to provide for us." I thought that's what she wanted. "It's not just about money or providing," Sarah said gently. "She wants to feel valued and loved. You need to show her that you can be there for her emotionally, not just financially." Her words resonated deeply. I realized I had failed to nurture the emotional connection that had once been the foundation of our relationship. I had taken her for granted, assuming she would always be there. Now, I had to prove to her that I could be the man she needed. With renewed determination, I began to take action. I started by writing Emily a heartfelt letter, pouring out my feelings and regrets. I told her how much she meant to me, how I was willing to change and grow. I acknowledged my mistakes and expressed my desire to rebuild what we had lost. I wanted her to know that I was committed to making things right. The next day, I left the letter at her favorite cafe, hoping she would see it when she went for her morning coffee. I imagined her reading my words, feeling the sincerity behind them. But as the days passed, I received no response. Doubt began to creep in. Had I lost her for good? I refused to give up. I decided to take a more direct approach. I showed up at her workplace one afternoon, my heart pounding as I walked through the doors. I spotted her at her desk, deep in thought, and my breath caught in my throat. She looked beautiful, but there was an unfamiliar sadness in her eyes. "Emily," I said softly, and she looked up, surprise flickering across her face. "Jack, what are you doing here?" she asked, her tone cautious. "I just wanted to talk," I replied, feeling the weight of my words. "Can we go somewhere private?" She hesitated but finally nodded, leading me to a small conference room. Once inside, I felt the tension in the air. I know it's been a while since we've talked, and I understand if you're angry, I began, my voice steady but laced with emotion. But I want you to know how deeply sorry I am for everything. I've been reflecting on my actions and how I've hurt you. Emily crossed her arms, her expression guarded. You really think a few apologies will fix everything? No, I don't, I replied. But I need you to know that I'm committed to making real changes. I've been so focused on work that I lost sight of what mattered most, us. I want to be there for you, to listen to you, to be the partner you deserve. She remained silent, her gaze fixed on the floor. I took a step closer, desperate for her to see the sincerity in my eyes. Please, Emily. Give me a chance to prove that I can be that person again. I'm willing to do whatever it takes to win you back. She looked up, her expression softening ever so slightly. Jack, it's not just about you saying you'll change. It's about whether you can actually follow through. I need to see effort, not just words. I understand, I said, my heart racing. I'm ready to show you. I'll make time for us. I'll put my work on the back burner. Just give me a chance to show you how much you mean to me. After a long pause, she sighed, her shoulders slumping slightly. I don't know, Jack. It's hard to forget everything that's happened. I've been hurt. I know, and I don't expect you to forget, I said quickly. But I want to rebuild your trust. Let's start with small steps. Can we go out for dinner this weekend? Just the two of us? No distractions, just us. She hesitated, the conflict evident in her eyes. I don't know if I'm ready for that. Just think about it, I urged, my voice earnest. No pressure. I just want a chance to show you that I can be the man you fell in love with. As I spoke, I could see the flicker of hope in her eyes, but it was quickly overshadowed by doubt. I'll think about it, she finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. I left the office that day feeling a mix of hope and uncertainty. I knew I had a long way to go, but I was determined to prove to Emily that I was worth fighting for. I spent the next few days focused on small gestures, sending her texts just to check in, picking up her favorite coffee, and reminiscing about the good times we had shared. But as the weekend approached, I couldn't shake the feeling of fear. What if she chose to stay with Mr. Thompson? What if my efforts weren't enough? I needed to confront my fears and take a leap of faith, but I also knew that I had to respect her feelings and give her the space she needed. On the day of our planned dinner, I arrived early at the restaurant, my heart racing with anticipation. I had chosen a place that held special memories for us, a cozy little Italian restaurant where we had celebrated anniversaries and milestones. I hoped the familiar ambience would remind her of the love we once shared. As I waited, I replayed everything I had practiced in my mind. I wanted to be genuine, to express how much I wanted her back in my life. But deep down, I knew I had to be prepared for any outcome. Whether she chose to walk away or give us another chance, I had to respect her decision. When she finally walked through the door, my heart skipped a beat. She looked stunning, her eyes bright but cautious. I stood up to greet her, and as she approached, I felt a mixture of hope and dread. Tonight would determine the course of our future, and I was ready to fight for the love that still flickered within me. As I watched Emily walk toward me, I felt a rush of determination. She looked beautiful in her black dress, her hair cascading over her shoulders. I stood up, my heart racing as I prepared to pour out my feelings. As she approached, I could see the hint of a smile on her lips, but there was still a caution in her eyes that told me she was guarded. Hey, I said, trying to keep my voice steady as I pulled out her chair. You look amazing. Thank you, she replied, sitting down. The atmosphere felt charged with unspoken words, and I sensed the weight of what was at stake. We began with small talk, reminiscing about our shared memories, the trips we had taken, the laughter we had shared. I could see her walls starting to lower, just a little, as we chatted. I felt a spark of hope flicker within me. Maybe this dinner would be the turning point we both needed. As the evening progressed and our plates were cleared away, I took a deep breath, ready to lay my heart bare. Emily, I said, my voice earnest. I know I've made mistakes, and I understand why you've been hesitant. But I love you. I want us to work through this together. I'm committed to being the partner you deserve. She looked at me, her eyes searching my face for sincerity. I want to believe you, Jack. I really do, she said softly. But it's hard to forget how things were. I get that, I replied, leaning forward. But I'm willing to show you that I can change. I want to make it right, starting with being present in our relationship. Just as I was about to continue, the door swung open, and I caught sight of Mr. Thompson walking in, his confident stride unmistakable. My heart sank as I saw him, but what shocked me more was the woman at his side. She was stunning, with long blonde hair and an easy smile that seemed to light up the room. My stomach twisted at the sight. Jack, Emily said, following my gaze. I could see her surprise as well. Isn't that? Yeah, I muttered, feeling a wave of anger rise within me. That's Mr. Thompson. He spotted us and, for a moment, our eyes locked. There was a flicker of recognition, but he quickly turned his attention back to the woman beside him. They chatted animatedly, and I felt my fists clench under the table. I tried to focus on Emily, but the sight of Mr. Thompson laughing and enjoying himself with another woman ignited a fire of jealousy and frustration within me. Jack? Emily's voice pulled me back from my thoughts. Are you okay? I forced a smile, but inside I was seething. Yeah, I'm fine. Just, surprised to see him here. As the evening progressed, I couldn't help but steal glances at Mr. Thompson and his companion. They seemed so at ease with each other, and I felt a pang of insecurity wash over me. Was this what Emily wanted? A life filled with glamour and charm, one that I couldn't compete with? Jack, are you sure you're all right? Emily asked again, concern etched on her face. I took a deep breath, trying to push aside my jealousy. I'm just realizing how much I want to fight for us, I admitted. Seeing him here just makes me realize that I can't take this for granted. Emily's brow furrowed as she glanced back at Mr. Thompson. Do you think I'm leaving you for him? No, I replied, but the doubt lingered in my mind. But I don't want to lose you to someone who can offer you a life I can't. Jack, it's not about the money or the car, she said firmly, her eyes locking onto mine. It's about how we treat each other. I've realized that I need more than just financial stability, I need emotional support and love. That's what I was missing. I nodded, my heart swelling with hope. And I'm here to give you that. I promise to be more present, to listen, and to put our relationship first. As the evening continued, I tried to keep my focus on Emily, but the distraction of Mr. Thompson lingered. I watched as he leaned closer to his companion, laughter flowing freely between them, and I felt a surge of protectiveness for what I had once shared with Emily. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Mr. Thompson and his date made their way toward the exit. As they passed our table, he paused, a smirk on his face. Enjoying your dinner, Jack? He asked, his tone dripping with condescension. My heart raced, and I felt the heat rise in my cheeks. Yeah, we're having a great time, I replied, forcing a smile, even as my fists clenched under the table. Emily shot me a glance, her eyes wide with surprise at his intrusion. What are you doing here? She asked, her voice steady. Just enjoying a night out, Mr. Thompson said, turning his attention back to his date. You should do the same, Emily. You deserve someone who can truly appreciate you. His words stung, and I felt a surge of anger. I appreciate her more than you ever could, I shot back, my voice rising. Is that so? He replied, a mocking smile playing on his lips. Good luck with that, Jack. You'll need it. As he walked away, I felt a mix of relief and frustration. I turned back to Emily, whose expression mirrored my own, conflicted and uncertain. Jack, she began, but I interrupted. Let's not focus on him. I'm here, right now, and I want to be with you. I want to show you that I can be the partner you need, I said, trying to keep my resolve strong. She nodded, and for the first time that night, I saw a glimmer of hope in her eyes. "Okay, let's take it one step at a time. I want to see if we can rebuild what we had." As we finished our dinner, I felt a sense of cautious optimism. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but I was willing to fight for us. I wanted to prove to Emily that I could be the man she fell in love with, and I was determined to do whatever it took to win her back. In that moment, I realized that love wasn't just about grand gestures or material things, it was about connection, understanding, and the willingness to grow together. I was ready to embrace the challenge, to face the future hand in hand with the woman I loved, no matter what obstacles lay ahead. In the weeks that followed our dinner at the restaurant, Emily and I took tentative steps toward rebuilding our relationship. We began to communicate more openly, sharing our feelings and fears in a way we hadn't done in a long time. I made a conscious effort to prioritize her in my life, carving out time from my busy schedule to show her how much she meant to me. Slowly but surely, the walls that had grown between us started to crumble. Emily returned home, and it felt like a breath of fresh air had swept through our house. The silence that had once felt suffocating was replaced by laughter and the warmth of shared moments. We spent evenings cooking together, reminiscing about our favorite recipes, and turning the mundane into something special. Our weekends were filled with little adventures, hikes in the nearby woods, visits to local art galleries, and cozy movie nights on the couch. During this time, I learned to appreciate the small things. I started to understand that love wasn't just about grand gestures, it was built on everyday moments, making her morning coffee, leaving little notes of encouragement, and simply being present. Emily, in turn, began to open up about her feelings, sharing her dreams and aspirations with me. We talked about our future, and it felt like we were rediscovering each other all over again. One evening, as we cuddled on the couch, Emily turned to me, a thoughtful expression on her face. "Jack, I was thinking, maybe we should talk about starting a family," she said, her voice soft but filled with hope. The words hung in the air for a moment, and I felt a rush of excitement mixed with a hint of apprehension. "Are you sure?" I asked, my heart racing. "I mean, after everything." "I know it's a big step, but I really believe we're ready," she replied, her eyes shining with conviction. "We've come so far, and I want to share my life with you, in every way possible." I took her hands in mine, feeling a wave of emotion wash over me. "I want that too, Emily. I want to build a life together, to create a family. I'm ready." As the weeks turned into months, we embraced the journey of preparing for parenthood. We attended classes, read books on parenting, and even set up a nursery in our home. The anticipation of welcoming a child into our lives filled every corner of our hearts with joy. It felt like a new beginning, a chance to create something beautiful together. Then, one sunny afternoon, Emily and I received the news we had been waiting for: she was pregnant. The moment she told me, I felt a rush of emotions, a mix of elation, disbelief, and overwhelming love. We celebrated with tears and laughter, envisioning the future we would build as parents. As the months passed, we experienced the ups and downs of pregnancy together. We attended doctor's appointments, felt the baby's kicks, and marveled at the miracle of life growing inside her. I was in awe of Emily's strength and resilience, and it deepened my love for her. Finally, the day came when we welcomed our child into the world. I'll never forget the moment I held our baby for the first time. Emily, exhausted but radiant, looked at me with tears in her eyes. "We did it, Jack," she whispered, her voice filled with awe. "Yes, we did," I replied, my heart swelling with pride and love. In that moment, all the struggles we had faced faded away, replaced by the sheer joy of our new family. As we settled into our new roles as parents, life took on a different kind of rhythm. There were sleepless nights, diaper changes, and moments of chaos, but there was also laughter and love in abundance. We learned to navigate the challenges together, leaning on each other for support and celebrating the little victories. One evening, as we sat together on the couch, our baby nestled between us, I turned to Emily, filled with gratitude. "I can't believe how far we've come," I said, my voice filled with emotion. "After everything we went through, I never imagined we would be here, so happy and in love." Emily smiled, her eyes sparkling. It hasn't always been easy, but we fought for each other. We chose to love, and that's what matters. In that moment, I realized that our journey had only just begun. We had weathered the storms together, learned to communicate, and rediscovered the love that had brought us together in the first place. As we watched our baby sleep peacefully, I felt a sense of hope and excitement for the future. Our lives were on the mend, and together we were ready to embrace whatever challenges lay ahead. We had built a solid foundation of love and trust, and I knew that with each passing day, we would continue to grow as individuals and as a family. With Emily by my side, I felt ready to face anything. Our love story was far from perfect, but it was ours, a testament to the power of resilience, understanding, and the unwavering bond we had forged. And as we took our first steps into this new chapter of parenthood, I knew that together, we could create a life filled with love, laughter, and countless beautiful memories.